Beautiful human. Today, I want to show you the model that does 5 figures for me with zero outbound, no sales calls, no team, none of that. It's a really, really simple drawing that I've put together. I've onboarded about 250 or so clients in this exact moment inside Modern Maker. We're all installing this model and it's pretty fun. So I wanted to record this and sort of take it step by step to make sure that we understand what a marketing-driven business is, not a sales-driven business. So hopefully we're going to have fun with some of my doodles and we'll get there. So before that, I just wanted to sort of give you the philosophy of how this model came about, because I used to run an agency for about 7 or 8 years or so, and at the peak had 12 people under me, and was a freelance web developer to start with, scaled all the way up. We did hit 7 figures over the years, but I was exhausted. I had to take sales calls, do cold emails, do outbound, this, that, and even though the money was good in revenue, it wasn't sort of take home when it came to profit. And at the heart, I felt like, I'd say, more of an artist than a business owner. So I was an artist trying to do business, and at some point it escaped me. I became a business owner trying to hold on to the art. So I got on LinkedIn as almost like a cry for help to do what we were doing at the agency for clients, for myself. And, post-COVID and all of that, sort of managed to scale my LinkedIn to 50K followers or so, an email list of, I think right now is about 5.8K. And helped tons and tons of other business owners sort of install this little system that I'm going to show you. But the main philosophy was like, my daughter was born not too long ago, little Miss N, we call her, and it really shook me because even though the model I had was working, it didn't feel aligned at heart. I wanted to run a business that allowed me to be a present dad, a present husband, allowed me to work on my own time, like right now I work, or take calls on Tuesdays and Thursdays, so 2 days a week, work 3 days a week. It's done 1.19 million in profit in the last 2 years, and it's just me doing it with one post, one email, and one offer a day, and that is sort of the breakdown. So the whole entire philosophy was me looking at this going, I'm going to burn this to the ground and start it over in a way that allows me to be dad, to be the fellow traveler, to be the friend in the room. I didn't want any sort of coaching, consulting, mentorship sort of labels. It was just me nerding out, essentially becoming an architect of this little system, sort of dabbling back into my engineering roots or my marketing roots, and realized there was always this sort of pull towards just nerding out on being a marketer, right? And this system has been installed by hundreds of others who may not want to be marketers. And basically the system runs while you live. So on that note, I've prepared this little doodle here that I wanted to share because at the core, before we dive into it, I wanted to sort of show you that most people that are running these sort of sales-driven businesses, not marketing-driven businesses, try to get a lead to become a client, right? And that's where they take sales calls, and sales calls have a lot to do with sort of all of the convincing that comes with, and all of that. And you're taking somebody through the journey in the sales call, but that requires a lot of this push marketing, right? Like the lead has to be convinced, you have to handle objections, you have to do all of that stuff that to me wasn't aligned. But to other people, like I've seen people absolutely crush the lead to client sort of funnel, right? Like run ads or do organic application form. From that application form, you get like, I would say, for example, 100 leads, and of those, 10 of them book a call. Maybe 5 of them show up if you're lucky, and 2 of them sort of close, and that's cool. But whatever happened to the 98 other leads? Do you just they enter a black hole? and you just leave them there? Do you follow up? Like, all of those questions were coming into my mind. So when I added the word customers to the mix, I had like this massive wake up call, right? So to me, I was like, how do we get little customers through the door? Because when I cracked it, I had about 400 customers that accounted for 90% of my revenue, right? And all of this will make sense. But what I was doing was, as I onboarded clients, I would create these little things here called assets, right? And those assets I used to come all the way up here and start feeding the assets or talking about them on LinkedIn, on Instagram, through creatives, word of mouth over here. And these assets were ideas, right? Like, I have Power Writing, I have the Modern Maker, I have the Micro Snack Cartel, I have the Proximity Ladder that I'll talk about in a second. And once I started talking about those, my content provided context to the asset. So when I made offers, I could then turn leads to customers. And then I could turn customers into clients. So fundamentally, this is the model we're going to talk about today. We're just going to get into a little more detail. So this is what it looks like again. I've just switched that into, this sort of more horizontal looking one. And we go from lead to customer, take a pit stop. That's why all of these little flashing lights, and then turn them into clients. So if you remember what we said, we're going to do things a little unconventionally here. Instead of reading from left to right, we're going to go from right to left. And I promise it will start to make sense. So we had, if you remember, our little asset over here. So this to me is called the proximity ladder, where when you create assets for clients, let's say those little assets could be, Loom videos, they could be workshops, they could be voice notes, they could be little templates, whatever they may be, they're assets. And usually they collect dust instead of collect dollars on your hard drive. And when you set up a coaching or consulting or, service-driven business, many people sort of have an offer portfolio. Like at the agency, I had web design, web development, branding, SEO, email marketing, and I had this offer portfolio that required a lot of attention, right? And if I by nature loved email marketing, the email marketing vertical would do really well, and then the web design or the branding would perform less well, right? Whereas a proximity ladder has levels of access to the game. Everybody gets the same asset that is highlighted right here today. And all you're selling is how close they get to you, right? So the proximity to you is where the money comes through. So let's say the asset is a workshop. Some people may decide to just buy the workshop, right? So that is proximity level 1 over here, right? Let's say they bought the workshop. It's $100, happy days. They come to the workshop, and that is that. Super simple, right? One-time proximity, one-time access. Now, what I help people do here is set up their proximity ladder by creating a proximity offer, right? So we have one offer over here, and I think of it as a rental, right? We live in the subscription economy. Netflix, Spotify, your phone bill, everything under the sun is, on a weekly retainer or on a monthly retainer. So why can we not rent out our info, our ideas, our services, right? So in this case, this is how the proximity offer was born, with different levels of access or different layers of proximity. So what I did was, in the case of the workshop, that is $100, fantastic, right? You get that. What I could offer is a second layer of proximity to say, like, you can get the workshop or you can get community level access, right, over here. And that is something like $50 a week, right? I'm just going to do that for the sake of this little model here. $50 a week, cancel anytime. So you get all of the assets that were highlighted, and you also get community level access. So in that case, what they are getting is like, the delivery could be a school group. It could be like a weekly call cadence. There's like support in the community. Now, some people may turn around and go, you know what, Jacob, I want a little bit more access to you. So, let's say we introduce chat access. So they get the workshop or the assets, the workshop library or the asset library. So I'm just going to type assets here. They also get the community, and they also get like a Discord channel, right? And instead of that being $50 a week, that could be $200 a week, right? So now we've just added another layer of proximity to the mix, but everybody still gets the assets. The only difference here is they're also getting more proximity to you. And then the final tier in my world is us sort of switching this around and going, let's say for $400 a week, what you get is one-on-one, right? So let's fix it here. So we've got one-on-one. That could be, depending on what service you provide, you get to be the architect, you get to pick what that is. But in this case, the way that I did it for myself, it was essentially one-on-one access. So people get the chat, they also get a Zoom with me, right? Zoom call a week or a WhatsApp or whatever. So that is like the final layer of proximity. So far, so good. So that is our little, if we want to call it, our proximity ladder. And I help people basically create their proximity offer. And usually it has 2 tiers, right? So if it's a coaching program, you have your group access and you have your one-on-one access. This little chat for me, sort of the mid-tier, was born by simply onboarding more and more people and wanting to build a little more leverage and have my, what I call, inner circle that has like a Discord and stuff. So that's why we're reading it right to left. So this covers our proximity, and we can use weekly pricing. Notice how I've sort of done this weekly. Why? Simply because people are more likely to buy when the number is smaller, right? So you can tier it with this sort of weekly plan. You can do monthly, you can do pay in fulls, you can give incentives. I'm not going to get into the nitty gritty detail because I just wanted to explain the model. Now, going backwards now that we have this asset, we want to create, right? Take a lead and turn them into a customer. So to do that, what did we say? In this example, we had a workshop that was $100 once off. Now that workshop could be sold as a replay, or for example, in my world, I created an asset which is teaching people how to create Google Doc offers, right? And taught a client, then I recycled that video and I recycled that asset, and I came and gave it new life over here. There's my little asset that is yellow here, and that's my Google Doc offer. That creates a snack. That's why I call this middle bit the micro snack cartel, because me and my wife were watching Pablo Escobar or Griselda or whichever one of the two, and those two sort of drug pins would give people little snacks before they hooked them on to the bigger snacks, right? So that was the inspiration behind my micro snack cartel. It is a typical sort of customer to client value ladder that you may have heard before. So we grab the asset. In this case, the Google Doc offer, in your case, it could be something that relates directly to your core offer that we just spoke about in the proximity layer. And we offer it to our audience. Like for me, I offer it on LinkedIn. I offer it to my email list. Email list is primarily where I sell my stuff and make an offer every day. So that is where this sort of one email a day part of the equation comes. So you create your asset. Now what I do is I want to increase the average order value of this little snack, right? So I create bigger snacks. These are called like order bumps, right? So order bumps could be something that relates to that little snack that you initially had your low ticket offer. In my case, let's say the Google Doc, I will create an order bump, which is like the 30 emails that made me 800K over the last 2 years, the campaign that I ran. And I give that as a supplementary order bump to help somebody who's creating a Google Doc-based offer, right? So now I've increased the average order value of my cart. And then I can offer an even bigger snack over here. So I go, okay, what relates to that? You have a Google Doc, you have the templates. Well, how do you fill your email list with more email list subscribers so you can give them snacks, right? So that way, that bigger snack is like my LinkedIn content plan, or like the setup to get 3K once, then 3K a month, then 3K weekly, and then, so on and so forth, plus my content strategy as a bundle. So now the cart went from $9 all the way through to something like 138, if my math is right. But that is how I build my little micro snack cartel. So we build sort of doors to it and feed these little snacks to customers, to leads, to create them into customers with one daily email. And this is my favorite part of this entire equation. Now, when we look at this entire thing, why did I put the word mid here? Because this is the middle of the funnel. And this is a really nice segue into the most left side of this equation. So when we look at this model, primarily people who teach content out there will say, like, on LinkedIn, on Instagram, on insert social platform, we've got top of the funnel, middle of the funnel, and bottom of the funnel, right? And they use their social media to sell on it, to do everything on it. Whereas for me, it's very different. And I used to do the top, middle, and bottom funnel on my LinkedIn as well. And, it did fairly well, but you fatigue your audience when you sell there every day. So how I think about it is, in the middle of the funnel, let me just change my colors over here. We've got assets that I'll get to in a second. We've got email, the little envelope. We've got remarketing ads, and we've got YouTube. That is where we go really deep in the middle of the funnel to supplement our snacks. That's why I'm going to put some little blue on our email over here, because it's a mixture, right? I use email as a little remote control to pivot into getting people to watch a video, to read another email, or go to my LinkedIn. So it not only makes offers and nurtures people, but it also creates depth. So why I'm telling you this, if we rewind, I use this model where my social media is my top of the funnel, my email and YouTube is middle of the funnel, and my bottom of the funnel is actually, if we go back to our highlighter, these little two guys over here. Bottom of the funnel is the DMs and the Google Doc offer they're going to get from my proximity offer. That's going to get them to say yes, right? That conversion. So when you run a marketing-driven business, the heavy lifting is done through email, YouTube, nurture. So that way, by the time they get there, they're like, oh my God, Jacob, I want to work with you. Send me the payment link. Or I've gone down this giant rabbit hole. I've binged your stuff. So I'm ready to go. That's why the bottom of the funnel is like, oh, cool. Or they'll send an inquiry. I'll send them a doc. They'll say yes. And that's how we close 1 to 5K clients weekly on repeat through that. And then the DM is literally like, hey, here is the doc, right? So knowing this now, we're going to go back to the top of the funnel here and talk about the one post. So what I do is I use my LinkedIn in this model organically, right? So let's put the word organic. I also do IG organic, but you see this little $sign here? I do Instagram paid. I run low cost $5 a day ads. And then the third component is word of mouth. So that is my top of the funnel. And primarily at the top of the funnel, I sell ideas, because ideas are sold much faster than content or anything else. They catch fire, right? So what I've just told you today is a great way to segue into that, because my students are called modern makers, people who run this system. The micro snack cartel is an idea that I birthed. The proximity ladder or the proximity offer is an idea that I birthed, right? Power writing, which is what I'm going to show you right now, is also an idea that people at first have no idea about until I give them context. So that way, when I make an offer, it starts to make sense. So at the top of the funnel, I use something really, really simple, which is called dog whistling. Dog whistling is essentially specificity. If I can dog whistle, only dogs can hear me, and dogs are my ideal clients. I don't want to broad whistle and sort of like stick spaghetti on a wall, get loads and loads of followers and loads of engagement, but zero consumers. Because consumers, they say like bingers are buyers, consumers become customers. And that is why we use the top of the funnel to dog whistle to our ideal clients specifically, so they can raise their hand and get through the funnel and enter our micro snack cartel. So the core fundamentals of LinkedIn Organic and Instagram for me are at the intersection of who you are and what you do. So I grab concepts on the right-hand side. When I say what you do, is I will talk about anything that I do at work, right? So I helped a client package an offer. I edited some copy that went from, 40% conversion to 43% conversion. I got on a client call and helped them solve this problem, whatever. Then on the other side, we've got who I am, right? Who I am is a dad. Who I am is a hobbyist guitarist, right? Who I am as a runner, and I talk about all those things, and people buy you before buying what you do. So essentially, I'm going to put these little words here. Now that you know that, I want to show by demonstrating what I do in my content, so my ideal client can see that I'm competent, and I want to share who I am, right? And at that intersection, we have power writing, right? We write to shift beliefs. We write to call out our ideal audience. We write to give context to our ideas through content by collecting everything that happened in the past. Instead of creating new content, we go back and we collect it. So in this case, I do a lot of show posts and I do a lot of share posts. And I give a lot of context to my followers to turn them into leads at this point. And when I show things, I also make little invitations with that one post per day. And I say, hey, I've got this lead magnet. If you want it, you can grab it. So there's two ways of coming into this ecosystem. Number one is a customer offer. So right now, you guys saw that little asset, right? So I go, blah, blah, blah. Here's a post on LinkedIn. Join my email list or come check this out. And then I make them a $9 offer, which is my Google Doc blueprint. And that creates a lead to a customer, right? Sometimes before they even go through the cartel, or that is the beginning of our cartel. Also, what I do is I've got something here called a playbook. So I wrote a 30-page book. I can drop it down in the description below of this model in text format. And I give it away for free to pre-sell people into this model, right? So a lot of people who have downloaded that book have eventually become customers or clients. And there's so much trash out there, and that's what I mean by when you have a really, really good, instead of a lead magnet, I call them customer magnets, because their job is to turn a lead to a customer, right? So same thing with this one, even though it's $9, anyone who buys it and enters my email list is now a customer. And it's so much better talking to customers who have transacted with you than it is trying to talk to a lead and convince them to become a client. So in this case, I use my LinkedIn and my Instagram. I use my top of the funnel with one post a day to show who I am, show what I do, give context to my ideas, in order to make little offers. Now that one little offer on my post is get on my email list or grab my lead magnet and whatnot. And then by bypassing through here, some of them become customers and ascend all the way through to become clients, right? Through my little snack cartel, because they might buy everything. And some of them just become really warm leads, right? Who go through the playbook. And this playbook for me has served me so well because it just talks about this model and people binge all of that and then they come through. So at the intersection of who I am and what I do gives context to these ideas. They go through the micro snack cartel at this little pit stop over here, right? And then at the bottom of the funnel, I give them a 2 to 5 page Google Doc with a 1 or 2 line DM that has the payment link in it, and then they go through into my proximity ladder, and they're probably sat either at this sort of community tier or the chat tier, and then I can make offers vertically instead of horizontally, left to right, to existing clients who want to spend more, that either want to do one-on-one, or I have like even higher tiers like offer installs or equity partnerships or whatnot, by making vertical offers to my existing community to ascend up and down the proximity ladder. So hopefully, this little game plan has shown you what it is to run a marketing-driven business. Let's do a little smiley face here. Not a sales-driven business with one post, one email, and one offer every day. And I help a lot of people sort of install this, and obviously this is a long-term play. Marketing does take time. It's not like that instant gratification, but once you install this, people will then come here and run ads. We start $5, $10, scale to 50, and so on and so forth. And then once you get in here, they might do like a little bit of remarketing, right? Or we might scale the email sequences and start optimizing to make it better. But this is the sole reason why I'm able to be a present dad and be a present husband and, work 2 days a week to deliver to clients and work 3 days a week to sort of do the rest. And it allows me to basically live a lifestyle business in a way. And, some people might take this and go travel or do whatever it is their heart desires. For me, it's just, being on this island and being a dad and living a very simple life, that is very close to my values. So I hope you learned something today. If this model resonates, you can DM me the word M3. I'm going to put it over here, M3, on Instagram, and I'll send you the documents. You can have a go, or you can grab the playbook, which is going to be in the description below. You can have a read, and so thankfully or hopefully you learned something, and I look forward to seeing you in the next video.